welcome back to the class. So, we will continue our discussions on Rankine cycle, and we will in this video we will try to quantify the work output and the heat input that is required to drive the Rankine cycle. That is why I have not I have not erased the diagrams. So, this is the component wise diagram of the Rankine cycle, and on the right pane here you can see the cycle diagram. On the TS diagram we can see the representation of the Rankine cycle. Before we do the calculation, let me just come back here, and you should realize that this Rankine cycle or a power plant which runs or operates using a Rankine cycle is nothing but a giant heat engine, right, because you see that this giant heat engine, it takes in some heat, and this heat is supplied to this cycle by burning coal. If you are running a coal power plant, then you will burn coal to supply the heat. If you are running a nuclear power plant, there will be nuclear fission reactions going on, which will be exothermic in nature, which will lead to a heat supply, or which will supply the heat to the this cycle. And this cycle, so this cycle basically takes in heat from whatever source you have available, produces some work output and rejects the rest of the heat to a colder reservoir. So, in case of a power plant, this colder reservoir, this heat rejection happens to the surroundings, okay, either to the surroundings or to a nearby body of water, okay, which if it is available. So, you might have seen that many times these big power plants are located near rivers. So, those large bodies of water will be available then to such power plants, and the heat rejection can be done to those large bodies of water, which effectively act as a natural reservoir, low temperature reservoir for as long as far as this particular cycle or this particular thermal power plant is concerned. Okay. So, now today what we will do is we will try to see or rather we will try to quantify the work output and the heat input and the heat rejection as well required to drive this cycle. So, let us do that. So, let us go step by step. So, first let us try to calculate. So, we will go step by step. So, we will start at point 1 and go around the entire cycle and see in each and every process how much heat input and how much work output are we getting. Okay. Okay. So, let us start and so before I move any forward, let me also point out some of the assumptions. So, the main assumption that we take here is that this power plant will assume that is operating at steady state and steady flow. Okay. So, the mass flow rate of the steam or water, depending on the phase it is in, will assume it to be m dot, and that m dot is constant, it is not changing with time, and all the devices in the cycle will assume that they are operating at steady steady flow condition. The second assumption is that for the time being we will ignore pressure drops and as well as irreversibilities, as well as, let me put it this way, internal irreversibilities. Okay. So, these two very important assumptions will take. So, you might understand where these irreversibilities might come into play. For example, when we are calculating the work output from the turbine or work input into the pump, internal irreversibilities might play an important role. Okay. So, with these two assumptions, let us start. So, first let us calculate process 1 to 2. Okay. So, this is a simple pumping process. You are pumping the liquid water from state 1 to state 2. So, here what will happen is we can assume for without any without further complicating things that the pump is operating at an adiabatic condition. So, this the pump is adiabatic, meaning that it is well insulated and it is not exchanging any heat with the surroundings. So, of course, we know that for this process there will be some work input required. So, the work input W dot in 1 to 2 is given by this will be simply m dot times H 2 minus H 1. This is something that you can very easily find out. Also, if you assume that the water is incompressible, that means if you assume that the specific volume of water is not changing with pressure, then we can actually evaluate this work done using the formula, using the relation m integral 1 to 2 V d p, there will be a plus here. So, this calculates to be, or this you can do the calculation, it comes out to be m dot times V times P 2 minus P 1. Okay. So, this is again, remember that this is the work input into the pump, assuming that the water is behaving as an incompressible liquid. Okay. If not, then this is more general. Okay. The first one, this one is more general. Okay. So, that is process 1 to 2. Let us look at process 2 to 3. So, process 2 to 3 is very simple, there is no work output, it is just we are just applying adding heat to the liquid water and there is sensible heating, that means the temperature of the water is rising and the pressure is not changing, right. The any pressure loss as the water flows through the pipe is being ignored, as I have indicated here. So, this is simply heating, and the rate of heat supply, again you apply first law of thermodynamics, the first law for an open system to the sensible heater, and you will see that the rate of heat supplied, let me call this Q dot sensible, Q dot sensible, this will be equal to m dot times H 3 minus H 2. This will simply be an outcome of, if you apply the first law of thermodynamics for the process 2 to 3. Okay. I am not going to derive in details what is happening, because I believe that you should be comfortable with applying first law to control volumes or open systems at this point. Okay. Then 3 to 4, 3 to 4 again is simple heating, and here, but here the heating is not sensible, but it is phase change, or you are supplying latent heat to the water. So, let us denote it with Q dot P c, P c meaning phase change. So, that will simply be m dot times H 4 minus H 3. This you understand is nothing but this is m dot H f g at T 3. Okay. This is m dot times H f g, H f g is the enthalpy of vaporization at temperature T 3. Okay. This again we have discussed previously. Then 4 to 5, this is superheating. This is again very simple, you apply first law of thermodynamics for the process 4 to 5, again recall that there is no work output, only heat is being supplied, steady state steady flow assumptions are there. So, Q dot superheat is nothing but m dot times H 5 minus H 4, this is for water vapor. Okay. All right. Then we have 5 to 6. So, 5 to 6 is a process where which is going on in the turbine, and in 5 to 6 you see there is no heat addition. So, this we are going to assume as a as being an isentropic process. That means, we are assuming that the vapor is expanding inside the turbine isentropically. Okay. So, that means adiabatically and reversibly, there is no heat addition and it is also the vapor expansion is also reversible. So, this here there will be W dot out turbine. So, this will produce work output, and again by applying the first law of thermodynamics to the turbine, which we have done repeatedly, you will see that this happens to be m dot times H 6 sorry not H 6 H 5 minus H 6. Okay. You can also apply integral VdP here also, minus integral VdP, but one of the problem is that you will not be able to use the ideal gas relations when you are trying to calculate or evaluate the integral VdP. Okay, because first of all the steam might not behave as ideal gas, and second, for a big part of the process in the turbine, actually there is liquid vapor mixture that exists within the turbine, which definitely does not behave as an ideal gas. So, it is not easy to evaluate this integral for the turbine for the process 5 and 6 5 to 6. So, it is just better to use this relation H 5 minus H 6. And finally, 6 to 1 is heat rejection. Again there is no work output, just heat rejection to the surroundings, and this will call Q dot condenser is equal to m dot times H 6 minus H 1. Again apply first law to the condenser, that means apply first law between processes between the states 6 and 1, and this is what you will find. Okay. So, this is a process wise description of the entire Rankine cycle. Let us try to quickly find out the efficiency. Okay. So, why do I do efficiency? So, let me, before we do efficiency, let us try to find out, this part is visible. Okay. Let us try to find out the net work output. So, net work output. So, you can see that in the cycle the turbine is giving you work output, okay, but at the same time this pump is consuming power, right. So, the net power output will be the work output from the turbine minus the work input required for running the pump. So, this will be W dot net will be equal to W out turbine, W dot turbine out minus W dot in 1 to 2. Okay. So, this will be nothing but m dot. So, we know that for the turbine W dot out is H 5 minus H 6 and W dot in is m dot H 2 minus H 1, and so you can do the calculation further, and this W dot net comes out to be m dot H 5 plus H 1 minus H 6 minus H 2. Okay. This is the net work output that is coming out of the Rankine cycle. So, if you know the states, you can very easily find out what is the net work output of the Rankine cycle. Let me just point out that in the entire calculation we have also neglected changes in kinetic and potential energies. So, delta Ke and delta Pe have been neglected. So, that also remains one of the assumption. Otherwise, these equations will not be correct. If you also take into account the changes in kinetic and potential energies, you have to take into account the changes in delta. So, there will be additional terms in these equations. Okay. So, this is the net work output. Okay. So, so that there is only one thing that is remaining, which is, let us try to find out the efficiency of the Rankine cycle. Okay. Let us do that here. So, for the first law efficiency, of the Rankine cycle, or let me do it here, is that okay? Okay. First law efficiency. So, first law efficiency of the entire Rankine cycle will be defined as W dot net, the net work output that is coming out of the cycle or the power plant, divided by the heat input, the heat that you are supplying to the power plant or to the working fluid. This is Q dot in. W dot net we have already calculated, that is just m dot times H5 plus H1 minus H2 minus H6, and what is Q dot in? So, again if you refer to this figure, you will see that Q dot in will be the heat input, the sensible heat input between states 2 and 3, the latent heat input between states 3 and 4, and the heat addition between states 5 and 4 and 5. So, this will be, this Q dot in can be written as Q dot sensible plus Q dot phase change, which is Q dot Pc, plus the Q dot for superheating, Q dot superheat. Okay. So, we have done the individual calculations. Let me do that here maybe. So, is there enough space, or maybe let me do it here only. This comes out to be m dot times H5 plus H1 minus H2 minus H6 divided by. So, let us come back here. So, what we are doing now is we are adding these three equations. So, I can see that if I add, so H4 and H4 cancels out, H3 and H3 cancels out. So, I have H5 minus H2 basically, okay. And remember that these are cancelling out because throughout this entire process the mass flow is the same. So, the same steam or the same hot water, saturated hot water that is exiting the initial, the first heater is entering the boiler, okay, and the same steam that is exiting the boiler is entering the superheater, which is why the mass flow rate remains the same. And so, if you add these up, you will get m dot times H5 minus H2. Okay. So, then we can cancel m dot from this. In fact, let me just remove this. Okay. So, that is it, that is the efficiency of the of this Rankine cycle that is going on. You can see that you can also express the efficiency eta 1 as just doing some simple algebraic manipulation. You should be able to show that this is nothing but 1 minus H6 minus H1 divided by H5 minus H2, okay, which again you should realize is nothing but 1 minus Q dot condenser divided by Q dot in. So, heat rejected by heat supplied. Okay. This is what we expect, because this is something that we have already studied for heat engines, but we just verified that entire thing by taking into account the individual processes. Okay. So, Q dot condenser, if I may come back here for a moment, we have mentioned here, this is the Q dot condenser and m dot cancels out. Okay. All right. So, just a few facts. So, this efficiency if you calculate for Rankine cycle or for a power plant which is operating, let us say between pressures 40, about 40 kilopascal of condenser pressure, this pressure is about 40 kilopascal, let us say, and this pressure let us say is about 20 megapascal, then this efficiency comes out in the tune of somewhere between 30 and 40%, okay, which is very small actually. Okay. So, it means that most of the heat that you are supplying to the through the heater, to the sensible heat boiler and all that, most of that heat is being lost, okay, to the surroundings, most of it is being rejected to the surroundings. Obviously, we can do better, and we should do better. So, there are certain modifications that you can do to the Rankine cycle, which improves the efficiency, which it can improve the efficiency, and even if it does not improve the efficiency, you can still get more work output per unit mass of the working fluid. So, either way you can extract more work or squeeze out more work of the working fluid. We are not going to discuss those things in this course, because frankly speaking we do not have too much time left. In fact, I would encourage you to go through the textbook and look into some of those improvements that we can do. Okay. So, if you look into chapter 9 of your textbook, you will see that the Rankine cycle and its variants have been discussed thoroughly. So, you can look at that, and I would encourage you to look at that and study that. Okay. So, let us end here for today about this on this. In the next class, what we will do is we will try to discuss some more aspects of the Rankine cycle, and then we will move on to the vapor compression refrigeration cycle that goes on in a household refrigerator. Okay. So, thank you very much. Let us end here.